Well, Aaron Burke is a dual Canadian and American citizen and a supporter of Donald Trump. On Thursday, he cast an early ballot for Trump to be president of the United States. So we told our viewers we'd be interviewing him, and then I went to Twitter and asked you, if you could be in this seat, what would you ask Aaron? And because of the nature of how mean this campaign has been, we asked you to keep it civil. Thankfully, most of you obliged. Aaron has agreed to answer some of your questions today. He joins us via Skype from Vaughan, Ontario. Good morning, Aaron. So let's begin with the first question, because a lot of folks think that Trump focuses too much on Obama's failure and how he says Hillary is corrupt. What is the specific policy issues for you that got you to cast that ballot for Trump?
Well, I think it's a lot of the issues that he's been speaking about since really the inception of his campaign, for the most part. Issues like border security and foreign policy and economic policy, education, healthcare reform. Really at the end of the day, kind of an overhaul of U.S. government as it stands today. Taking a lot of cutting the waste, the fraud, and the abuse out of pretty much every department, and finding ways to save money in operations, finding ways to provide better services to people, and finding ways to reform government so that it truly represents the American people. So
you really bought into his presentation of, we're going to make America great again. You felt there was a failure, and this is the guy to fix it.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, and I feel that way because he's truly an outsider, right? And I think it's the first time in a long time we've had a truly outsider campaign, from really on either side of the aisle, frankly.
Well, it's interesting you bring that up, because I actually got a lot of questions, including from Darren Welshie, asking, what were your political leanings and affiliations before this? Have you always voted Republican? Did he swing you over? Were you a Democrat? How have you voted in the past?
To be honest with you, I hadn't voted in past U.S. elections. I've been exposed to politics the better majority of my life. My mom was involved in politics for coming on 50 years, both in the U.S. and in Canada. So I've been exposed to political life for as long as I can remember, but never actually, had any particular interest in voting in U.S. elections. Following the first term of Obama, I started to be a little bit more concerned and maybe a little bit more active. But at that time, I wasn't registered in any party. But come this election, to me, I view this to some degree as almost an existential election for the United States of America in terms of the way that we know it.
Okay. Someone named Narendra tweeted me saying that, and this has really been at the crux of all the news this past week, Trump's comments about women. Now, you've already cast your ballot, but is there anything in there that troubled you that would have possibly made you change your vote? A lot of people were very concerned with what they heard. This is obviously sort of the hot button topic, right? And I've heard, a lot of people sort of raise the issue and so on. And for me, it's a couple things. One, thus far it's just words. And as much as, certain women are coming forward and they're saying that indeed happened to them and so on and so forth, there certainly isn't any evidence of any type of a wrongdoing per se beyond words that he said. And, growing up, I've certainly been involved, or been a party to or heard, the locker room banter, as it were. And I've probably heard a lot worse things said by people who certainly didn't commit those acts, right? So, so we're looking at, kind of words versus actions. And, as far as words go, I would be remiss to think that this is the only politician that's ever said those type of words today, never mind in general, right? Okay.
So I have to some degree, put aside some of that. And, frankly speaking, there's also been a real sort of a clear shift by the media to, the mainstream media in the U.S. in any event to try to sort of go after
Well,
Mr.
let me
Trump
jump in on that
any
point.
number.
Aaron, let me
Yeah.
jump in because that's actually one of the tweets we got. Actually, a lot of people asked about this because if you are, in fact, a Trump supporter, Alan tweeted me, and for the purposes of full disclosure, he himself is a journalist, but he was curious what you thought about the press coverage against Trump, because Trump says that the election's rigged, that the GOP is against him, that the Democrats are against him, that it's the Clinton machine. But in that mix, he throws in, quote, the mainstream media. So what's your point of view as both an American and Canadian citizen looking at the coverage?
I think that there's no question in my mind that mainstream media coverage is absolutely slanted in this election. Never mind. Just these past few days is a perfect example. We have the release of batches and batches of WikiLeaks email that detail things that slap of pay for play, that slap of quid quo pro, that smack of financial ties to foreign governments that could be questionable and things like that on the part of Hillary Clinton. And the only thing I've heard about all week long is the dirty words that Donald used and the unsubstantiated claims of sexual assault, right? And the irony is that these networks are disclaiming their wall-to-wall coverage of the accusations by saying that none of these claims are substantiated. However, and then spend the next, literally 6 hours talking about exactly that topic. So it's, I don't know, to an observer like myself, I look at it and there's no question in my mind what's going on.
Okay, Aaron, we really appreciate you taking these questions and making the time for us.
No problem. Thank you so much for having me.
Aaron Burke is a Trump supporter in Vaughan, Ontario. And let's keep that conversation going on Twitter. What do you think of Aaron's answers? They sound fair to you? What do you think of Trump's chances? And keep in mind, let's keep that conversation civilized and nice, people. Tweet me directly at Natasha Fatah.